Behind the quiet streets of Shelton, Connecticut during the 1980s, a working-class family faced something that defied every rational explanation they could devise. The town itself was not the kind of place where people rushed to embrace the supernatural, built as it was on decades of practical industrial labor along the Housatonic River, where factory whistles marked time and lives followed predictable rhythms. This was a community that fixed what was broken, consulted professionals when problems arose, and looked for sensible answers before considering anything else. So when objects began moving on their own inside one family's home, they did exactly what you would expect. They called plumbers to inspect the pipes, electricians to examine the wiring, and even a family therapist to explore whether stress might be playing tricks on their perception. None of these consultations produced answers. The pipes were fine, the electrical system functioned normally, and the therapist found a household under strain, but nothing that would explain dishes rearranging themselves overnight or furniture moving across floors during dinner. Desperate and exhausted, the family reached out to their local Catholic priest, hoping that perhaps a blessing might bring peace, even if it brought no explanation. What happened during that pastoral visit changed everything. The priest stood in the kitchen with the entire family present when a drinking glass slid across the counter in full view of everyone in the room. No one touched it, no vibration could account for it, and the movement was smooth and deliberate, as though an invisible hand guided it from one end of the surface to the other. The priest, a man of faith, but also of practical sensibility, recognized immediately that what he witnessed exceeded anything his training had prepared him to address through standard pastoral care. He knew of Ed and Lorraine Warren through the network of clergy who occasionally consulted them on cases that crossed from the pastoral into the genuinely paranormal, and he made the referral within days. When Ed Warren received the call and reviewed the preliminary information, certain details stood out immediately to his experienced eye. The phenomena were not random but focused, not chaotic but strangely purposeful, and they involved the sustained physical displacement of objects rather than mere sounds or feelings. These were the signatures of poltergeist activity, a specific category of paranormal manifestation that Warren had studied and encountered many times over his decades of investigation. He contacted the family and arranged to visit with Lorraine and the research team from the New England Society for Psychic Research as soon as schedules allowed. The phenomena the family described were escalating in both frequency and intensity. Each morning they found dishes in their kitchen cabinets completely rearranged, not simply disturbed, but reorganized with a precision that suggested intention rather than accident. A ceramic figurine that belonged on the living room mantelpiece appeared repeatedly on the kitchen table, no matter how many times they returned it to its proper place. Books tumbled from shelves one after another in sequence, falling at measured intervals that witnesses said felt timed and deliberate. Heavier objects began to move as well. A wooden dining chair flipped over on its own while 3 family members watched, and during one evening meal, the kitchen table itself shuddered violently and slid several inches across the floor, scattering dishes and food in every direction. One pattern emerged clearly from the family's account. Their teenage son was present during nearly all of the most dramatic incidents. This detail did not surprise Ed Warren in the slightest, as it fit perfectly with the classic profile of poltergeist cases documented across decades of serious parapsychological research. Adolescents, particularly those experiencing emotional turbulence, appeared again and again at the center of these manifestations, though the exact nature of that connection remained one of the most debated questions in the field. When Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived at the Shelton home, they found a family pushed to the edge of endurance. Weeks of disrupted sleep, constant vigilance, and the psychological strain of living in an environment where the basic reliability of physical objects could no longer be trusted had left everyone exhausted. Ed conducted careful, separate interviews with each family member while Lorraine walked through the house, opening her considerable psychic sensitivity to whatever might be present. What she felt disturbed her. Not merely residual energy from past events, but something reactive and present. Something that seemed to intensify in response to her attention rather than withdraw from it. This reactive quality suggested to Lorraine that they were dealing with an intelligent presence, rather than a simple recording of past trauma playing itself out without awareness. Ed's interview with the teenage son confirmed what Lorraine's impressions had already suggested. The boy had been going through a difficult emotional period that he had not shared with his parents, struggling with pressures and fears he felt unable to articulate. The timeline of his inner turmoil matched almost exactly with the onset of the physical phenomena in the house. Ed was careful in how he presented this information to the family, knowing from experience how easily it could be misunderstood. The correlation did not mean the boy was causing the phenomena through any conscious act, or that he bore responsibility for what was happening. Rather, in certain circumstances that researchers still did not fully understand, intense, unexpressed emotion in adolescence could serve as a kind of fuel that paranormal forces could exploit and amplify. The question Ed Warren faced in every poltergeist investigation was whether the phenomena originated from within the individual as an unconscious psychokinetic eruption, or from an external intelligence using the individual's energy as a power source and entry point. In the Shelton case, Lorraine's strong sense of an external reactive presence pushed his assessment toward the second interpretation, though he remained open to the possibility that both dynamics were operating simultaneously. What mattered most urgently was not resolving that theoretical question, but addressing the practical danger the family faced. The phenomena were becoming more forceful, the incidents more frequent, and the household was approaching a breaking point where normal life would become impossible to sustain. The intervention Ed and Lorraine designed for the Shelton case addressed both possible sources of the manifestation. Lorraine worked with the family and especially with the teenage son to create space for the emotional pressures that had been building unexpressed. She was not a therapist by training, but decades of working with families in crisis had taught her how to listen without judgment and help people give voice to distress they had been holding inside. The boy, given permission and safety to speak about what he had been experiencing, did so with visible relief. Ed later described that conversation as one of the most moving moments in the investigation, watching a young person shed a burden he had been carrying alone. The second phase brought back the referring priest to conduct a formal blessing of the property, a systematic spiritual cleansing that moved through every room with prayers directed both at the family's protection and at any external presence that had taken advantage of their vulnerability. The combination of psychological release and spiritual authority proved effective. Within a week, the physical phenomena had decreased substantially, and within a month, they had stopped entirely. The Shelton case became one of Ed Warren's favorite teaching examples when he lectured at universities about paranormal investigation, precisely because it illustrated the complexity and nuance required for this work. It demonstrated why rigid adherence to a single explanatory framework, whether purely psychological or purely supernatural, would fail to address the full reality of what families experienced. The case showed the necessity of taking both human emotion and spiritual dimensions seriously, of combining psychological sensitivity with theological knowledge, and of approaching each situation with genuine investigation rather than predetermined conclusions. The family recovered completely after the intervention, resuming the normal rhythms of life that had been so violently disrupted. The teenage son's emotional situation, brought into the open and addressed honestly for the first time, improved steadily in the following months. The Warren case files preserved the Shelton investigation as a study in the mysterious intersection between human psychology and paranormal phenomena, a relationship Ed Warren believed represented one of the most important and least understood aspects of the work to which he had devoted his entire life. The quiet streets of Shelton returned to their ordinary character, and one family learned that sometimes the most terrifying experiences can lead to healing if met with courage, honesty, and the right kind of help. Hashtags: paranormal investigation, poltergeist activity, Ed and Lorraine Warren, haunted Connecticut, true paranormal stories, supernatural investigation, paranormal documentary, real ghost stories, poltergeist case. Warren investigations, paranormal research, haunted house, true horror stories, unexplained phenomena, paranormal history. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented paranormal case files. All events reference real investigations by Ed and Lorraine Warren.